We begin this afternoon's show with Thursday night football as the L.A Rams beat the New Orleans Saints 30-22. For the Saints, Derek Carr, he went 27 of 40. He threw for 319 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. Chris Olave had a great performance, 9 receptions, 123 receiving yards, 1 touchdown. For the Rams, Matthew Stafford, he's been playing great lately. He went 24 of 34. He threw for 328 passing yards, 2 touchdowns. And Puka Nacua, the receiver for the Rams, 9 receptions, 164 receiving yards, 1 touchdown. Here's Rams head coach Sean McVay after the win.
Gave up some stuff at the end that we got to clean up, and there's a lot of things that we can certainly improve upon special teams, but love this group, really proud of them, and it's going to make for a good Christmas. So Merry Christmas to you guys. I'm out of here.
Talk about how tough you guys are when the balance, passing and running, is what we saw tonight.
Yeah, I think this mic is the shits. All right, but I'd say I think they've been great. You know, really, I think over the last 4 weeks, it's been really good stuff. Really, since the bye, if you really, I just have loved the way that this team has responded. And it's been consistent, but players are making plays. Guys are comfortable with what we're doing, and I think the coaches are doing a great job of putting them in the right spots. And so I'm really pleased with that. You know, we've got to be able to continue to reset. You know, we've been really in playoff mode in our mindset in regards to since the bye, based on being where we were at after the first 9 games. But we'll enjoy this one, and then we got to figure out, how to put together a complete performance against the Giants, who you guys have seen they've done a lot of really good things over this last month.
That was Rams head coach Sean McVay. So, my reaction to the Rams 30-22 win over the New Orleans Saints last night is the L.A Rams, once they make the playoffs, the L.A Rams will be a dangerous wild card football team. Nobody in the NFL wants to play the L.A Rams right now. I'm looking at the L.A Rams. They had their bye week in week 10. And since their bye week, the Rams, they are 5-1, and they've had some very, very impressive wins. In week 12, they blew out the Arizona Cardinals 37-14, but it's the Cardinals. They're not a playoff team, so I'm not going to really put much emphasis on that. But in week 13, they beat a Cleveland Browns football team that is a playoff team right now in the AFC. They beat the Browns 36-19. And then they lost to the Ravens in week 14, but that game was very competitive. It was extremely competitive, and it took a punt return in overtime for the Ravens to beat the Rams. Matthew Stafford played sensational in that game. It was Matthew Stafford going throw for throw with Lamar Jackson. Matthew Stafford, 23 of 41. He threw for 294 passing yards, 3 touchdowns in that game. It took a punt return in overtime for the Ravens to beat the Rams. Very, very competitive game. And they beat the Commanders in week 15. And then in week 16 yesterday, they beat the Saints, and they pretty much had control throughout the entire football game. They really, really had control. And it's funny because right now in the NFC, everyone's talking about Brock Purdy, Dak Prescott, and it's like we have forgot about who the hell Matthew Stafford is. And Matthew Stafford has been playing some great football. He tied Dak Prescott for the longest streaks in the NFL with 2 touchdowns and 0 interceptions. That's 2 passing touchdowns and 0 interceptions. Only Dak Prescott has as many games with 2 passing touchdowns and 0 interceptions as Matthew Stafford. And you look at what Matthew Stafford has done so far this season, 23 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, 3,648 passing yards. He's completing 62% of his passes. He's been playing some great football, and I'm looking at what he's done in the second half of the season. He hasn't thrown an interception since November 26th, a matchup against the Arizona Cardinals. So he goes against Cleveland, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Against Baltimore, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Against the Commanders, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. And last night, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Matthew Stafford is playing some great football. Stafford is balling, and he's playing at a high level. And honestly, dare I say that Matthew Stafford, he could possibly be the most dangerous quarterback in the NFC. Because when I look at the quarterbacks in the NFC, obviously, Brock Purdy is having an MVP caliber season. He's playing some great football. Dak Prescott is also playing at an elite level. Jalen Hurts, he's fell off this year. Jalen Hurts in 2023, he's not having the season that he had in 2022. Matthew Stafford is having a better season than Jalen Hurts is. Jared Goff is a turnover waiting to happen. I don't trust Jared Goff in a big playoff game. I trust Matthew Stafford more than I trust Jared Goff. So when I look at the NFC right now, and I'm looking at, okay, which quarterback do I trust to go on a stretch run in the NFC? I have to admit it's Matthew Stafford. Matthew Stafford is playing some great football, and he has this offense playing at an elite level. He really, really do. And I love their ability to get Williams, their running back, involved in the offense. You look at what he was able to do last night. It's Kyren Williams. Kyren Williams last night, 22 carries, 104 rushing yards, 1 touchdown. He averaged close to 5 yards per carry. If you can have Williams open up that running game and the offensive line can create running lanes for Williams, then opposing defenses have to bring safeties down in the box to try and contain Williams. That opens up opportunities on the outside for Nakua and Cooper Kupp. And it's crazy because as great as Cooper Kupp is, Puka Nakua is playing at such a high level right now. We've kind of forgotten about how great Cooper Kupp is. Cooper Kupp is an elite receiver in the NFL. But Nakua is having such a great rookie season. We've kind of forgot about Cooper Kupp. But Cooper Kupp is a big-time playmaker in this Rams offense, and he's going to help them once they get to the postseason. Because as great as Nakua has been throughout the regular season, he hasn't seen the bright lights in the playoffs quite yet. But that's something that Cooper Kupp has already had experience with. But you look at Nakua so far this year, Puka Nakua. He had a career high in receiving yards last night in their win against the Saints with 164 receiving yards. For the season, Nakua has 1,327 receiving yards. That's second in the NFL. So he's playing some tremendous football. And this Rams football team, they are the hottest team in the NFC. It's not the Packers. It's not the Falcons. It's not the Vikings. The wild card team that could possibly pull off a few upsets in the playoffs, it's the L.A. Rams. And I say it all the time when it comes to the L.A. Rams. If the L.A. Rams have a healthy Matthew Stafford, a healthy Cooper Kupp, and a healthy Aaron Donald, the Rams can beat anybody. They can beat anybody. But I have to also say this, because I was down on the Rams at the beginning of the season. The Rams have impressed me. I've been very impressed with what I've seen from the Rams in the second half of the season. I didn't believe in the Rams. I didn't think the Rams were a playoff team. I thought this was going to be a real rebuilding year for the L.A. Rams, and they have turned their season around in the second half of the season so far. They've turned their season around. So shout out to Sean McVay. Shout out to Matthew Stafford. They are in prime position to get one of those wild cards in the NFC, and they will be a dangerous, dangerous football team once we get into January. Now, on the other side, Derek Carr last night, he had over 300 passing yards for the game. Derek Carr, 27 of 40, 319 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. I'm looking at this New Orleans Saints football team, And the word that comes to mind when I think about the New Orleans Saints is inconsistent. The New Orleans Saints are an inconsistent football team, and they have been all year. You look at the Saints and what they've done against the premier teams in the NFL. Week 7, they lose to the Jacksonville Jaguars 31-24. Week 3, the Packers beat the Saints 18-17. And then you look at week 10, the Saints lose to the Vikings 27-19. They lose to the Lions in week 13, 33-28. They lost to the Falcons in week 12, 24-15. But they beat up on inferior competition. You see, in week 14 and week 15, they beat the Panthers and they beat the Giants. So that's inferior competition. But when they go up against average to good or great competition, they usually lose. They lose those type of games. I'm looking at Derek Carr for the season. 19 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, 3,417 passing yards. He's completing 67% of his passes. For me, Derek Carr has had a disappointing season so far for the New Orleans Saints. I thought by the Saints going out and signing Derek Carr in free agency, I felt like this was going to be an upgrade for the New Orleans Saints at quarterback, and they would be a for sure playoff team in the NFC. I picked the Saints to win the NFC South coming into the season, but they have been a major, major disappointment, and Derek Carr has had a very disappointing season. The Saints are 7-8. They are fighting for their playoff lives. They are inconsistent as a football team. I'm just not believing in the New Orleans Saints right now. I'm not feeling the vibes. I don't feel like Derek Carr is on the same page with Alvin Kamara, with Chris Olave. I know Chris Olave had over 100 yards receiving, but they're not on the same page. They're not. And I see too many times offensively, drives are stalled by this Saints offense, and they're not able to have consistent drives. And that's been the biggest issue for the New Orleans Saints. Last night, they only had 35 rushing yards. You got to be able to run the football. You got to be able to run the football as a football team, and that's a problem right now for the New Orleans Saints. They average 99 rushing yards per game. That's ranked 22nd in the NFL. So they're not getting it done on the ground. And Alvin Kamara is still, when he's at his best, he's still a top-tier running back in the NFL. So I'm not understanding why they're not running the football more effectively. But I don't think the Saints are a playoff team in the NFC. And I just feel like they're going to finish. I mean, you look at their schedule over the last few weeks of the season. Week 17, they are in Tampa. That's a potential loss. The way Baker Mayfield is flinging that football right now, Saints will not have any answers for Baker Mayfield in week 17. And then week 18, they finish up at home against the Falcons. They already lost to the Falcons earlier this season. And they lost to the Buccaneers as well earlier this season. So in the NFC South, they're probably the team that I feel like is going to be on the outside looking in. I would favor the Bucs and the Falcons over the Saints right now, for sure. But I don't think the Saints are a playoff team, but the Rams are definitely one of the hottest teams, not only in the NFC, but in the NFL right now. And they'll be a tough out come playoff time in January.